Did you ever have people? Who are these people? Are these players? Who are they? I only had my dad.
Yeah, there's all this false nine Spanish stuff.
Yeah, you're not having it, are you?
No.
The door has never been closed at United because he's under contract until 2028.
How worried are you?
How worried are you? In terms of, yeah.
I'm petrified. Most of them were okay, and you could understand if they did make a
Yeah,
mistake.
you're a Man U fan, aren't you?
I'm not blaming them for where we are.
I think Marx has let a lot of people down, really, with his attitude, and I think that's what the manager's trying to say.
Oh, here we go. This is what I've been waiting. This is why I'm here. Hello and welcome back to the Fan Debate, brought to you by Sky Bet, and I'm here with my Fan Debate co-host, yeah, that what it is?
I don't know.
Scholesy and all the fans, and this is the first show of 2025. So, how's the weekend been? How's it been going football-wise? What are you thinking?
Yeah, watched a lot of games on TV, I suppose. Obviously, the City-Chelsea game was a big game of the weekend. A little bit disappointed with Chelsea, if I was honest. I thought City would to have a real go at, and look, they started okay, but didn't really follow it up, so good win for City.
You're supposed to ask me what my lad's scoring.
Oh, sorry.
We keep this on.
So, Jamie, your lad scored.
Oh, yeah, she's proud bring that up. Yeah. I was there in the EFL Wigan game, yeah, so great to get the first career goal. Now he's only got 3 more to go to beat me. He'll probably do that this season. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Are
anyway.
they proper goals or own goals?
Well, I mean, own goals, you put them together in double figures. But no, I'm sure he'll get a couple of them as well before his career finishes. But, Luke.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's flexing. It's quiz time for you. I mean, what kit's that? What am I thinking of when I see that kit?
You're thinking of the 1999 kit, but this is
That's
year.
1999?
Well, no, this is the away kit this year.
Was that the one where the goalie, Luke Weaver?
Yeah,
that one, Wembley?
Yeah.
Dickoff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that kit, innit? So you've got 90 seconds, to get as many questions right as you can on your beloved City. Lee got 10 correct answers last week. Luke, do you think you can beat that?
Nah, we'll see.
Are you nervous? What are you feeling?
I'm content. We'll see. I've not got anything to be nervous about, but I probably will mess it up. So.
Well, basically, you've got 90 seconds with a maximum of 15 questions in that time. All questions on Manchester City. So, Scholesy's at the ready with the stopwatch. Right, here we go. Swansea City conceded 2 goals in August 2011 to a man making his City debut as a substitute. Yeah. Liam and Noel Gallagher wore City's home and away shirt for a famous 1994 enemy cover shoot. Who were the shirt sponsors?
Eidos.
No. Who scored more Premier League goals for Manchester City? Sibierski, Alano or Jovetic? Alano, yes. Squad number 23 has not been used since 2003 in memory of which former player?
Mark Vivian Foe.
Name the 4 Manchester City managers not to hail from the British Isles.
Pep Guardiola, Manuel Pellegrini, Roberto Mancini, Sven-Goran Eriksson.
Manchester City face how many charges for alleged breaches of Premier League financial rules? 2, 5 or 115?
115, mate.
City won their first major trophy in 34 years, lifting the 2011 FA Cup. Who scored the only goal?
Yaya Toure.
City's last game at Main Road was a 1-0 defeat to which current Premier League team?
Crystal Palace.
No. Which manager had the shortest reign of any City boss after 33 days? Even I know that one.
I don't know. Alan
Steve Coppell. How many competition trophies has Kyle Walker lifted during his Manchester City career?
Different competitions?
Yeah.
6.
6?
Yeah, Club World Cup.
No. How many trophies?
In total, 17.
Yeah. Which Italian assisted Sergio Aguero's...
Mario Balotelli.
Yeah. Which player has made the most Premier League appearances for Man City? Whoa. I've started, so go on, you can have that one, go on.
Has made the most appearances for us.
He's a legend, absolute legend.
David Silva.
Yes. 9 correct. What do you mean, yes? The other fellow got 10.
Oh, yeah. Beat him. Look at that. City United.
Also, I got robbed on one, so we're
I don't
basically
care,
level.
mate. I don't care.
We're basically
9.
level.
I don't care, mate.
Well, mate.
All of your answers were Balotelli, weren't they?
All of my answers were Balotelli.
They were all Balotelli.
I don't speak third place, mate. Get up the leaderboard.
Right, let's get a catch-up now with the supporters, but not just the supporters. We've actually got David Ornstein in as well. There he is. And welcome back, David. And the first one I want to ask you about is, we've seen a little back and forth over the weekend with Fabrizio. Is your arch nemesis, is he? Is there a rivalry there?
Colleague?
Colleague. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Really believe that one. About a potential transfer of Naipan to Man City, but he could be off to Arsenal. Come on, give us the info. Any feedback?
No, he's a player who's been looked at by loads of the top clubs. 18-year-old midfielder at Rosenborg, Norway Youth International. And Arsenal have been working on a deal to try and bring him in, but others have been exploring it as well. Girona, who are part of the City group, Man City are not signing him. And then there's others too. There's been suggestions of Aston Villa liking him, other teams on the continent. So he's a player that we do expect to move by the deadline and has a really promising future. But the situation's still open. There are no agreements in place. And his decision on his future, which is the most important thing, is yet to be made. So that's one that is worth keeping an eye on before the deadline.
What do you make of this January transfer window? We don't feel like we've had a real standout transfer. Is there any business that sort of shocked you up until now, or should everybody in this room be excited about what's going to happen in the last few days? Do you expect anything big to happen?
Well, there's been a big one on the continent, Kvaratskhelia from Napoli to PSG, but in the Premier League it's been relatively low-key so far. That doesn't mean that the work hasn't been going on to try and make things happen. It's probably been busier than ever behind the scenes, especially with clubs needing to trade in this PSR world and the stakes being higher for all of them. But in terms of coming to fruition and materialising, that might just happen in the final couple of days. The deadline's on the 3rd this year, a Monday, so they've got a tiny bit more time. And inevitably, things will develop. That I think quite a lot will happen, which means it could be quite chaotic in those final few days. I do think there'll be some late activity around, say, Man United and Chelsea, not necessarily together, because, a lot of people have talked about Nkunku, Garnacho, but there's also...
You mean between the two clubs, not specifically just doing their own deals?
Because there have been conversations between those clubs, but it doesn't mean that it will end up that way. There's interest in Nkunku from Bayern Munich, which has been reported before. So it doesn't mean it will necessarily go the way it's been going so far. But there are situations that kind of have to come to a head. They don't have to, but you would expect them to, like Marcus Rashford. What about a striker for Arsenal, which Mikel Arteta has been so clear that he wants? Can Tottenham do any more, given their current predicament? So there are big teams that kind of you expect to be busy. Don't forget, it's just 4 months until the summer window, so clubs have got to be really careful about the amount they may shell out, whether it be a permanent transfer or a loan fee, the salary involved when you know that it's not too far from being able to have a bigger market with more opportunities. But yeah, that's a waffly answer to say there will be activity, but many of us don't know exactly what that is just yet.
Scholes, January transfer window, anything that was like sort of stands out for you for Manchester United in the past when you were a player? And also, right now, with Man United, there's talk, I think, of maybe trying to get a left wing back in now. Would you, what David just said there, would you almost be saying, get to the end of the season and maybe who you really want, because there's not maybe that much available right now? Yeah,
I think that's a key point in January, is just for now. Because you could take people who you think might do all right, but are they really the ones, the top targets? But I think Man United have done that for such a long time on making bad decisions that I don't think there's any point in rushing into that now. I think as far as January signings, say good or bad, I always think of the Patrice Evra one, which at the time, it didn't look great. I think he played at Manchester City, was his debut, he had an absolute nightmare. Was him and Vidic in the same window? Yeah, they were. I think they came together. I can't remember if Vidic played in that game. I'm pretty sure he didn't. I can't remember if Henrik Larsson was in the January window as well. Wasn't he? But I know he didn't score loads of goals, but he had a real impact because we were struggling at centre forward. And in training especially, when you see a forward, you think, okay, he's coming to the end of his career a little bit, but you think how good would he must have been 5 or 6 years ago, what he did at Celtic and other clubs. But
didn't you come back in the January transfer window?
Yeah, I did actually, yeah.
Not bad, not a bad one.
We got Fernando Torres. That was January, wasn't it? Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, what was that?
That went down well, didn't it?
2011, with Andy Carroll going from Newcastle to Liverpool to replace Torres.
Suarez
That window was the only one that I can remember really good January signing of Luis Suarez from Ajax to Liverpool. There's been Arshavin deadline day to Arsenal, but
Van Dijk.
Van Dijk was a good one. The summer it was meant to happen, then January. Can you remember many good signings in January?
Jelavic. Jelavic was unbelievable for a few months.
Van der Vaart's got to be...
Laugh, mate. He scored. He'd make you cry, mate, with that goal in 2012. Equaliser. Edin Dzeko.
He was laughing at Jelavic.
Right,
Jelavic
want to come in.
You're going to scrap.
We've just touched on Manchester United. Gareth, I want to come to you because Liverpool are in a great position in all competitions, but we still certainly, if you go online and social media, there's still Liverpool fans tearing their hair out that they haven't made a signing, obviously, in the summer, really, or in this January transfer window. Where are you with Liverpool right now? Do you think that could come back to haunt us?
Possibly, because, you know, you look at last season and we were in a very similar position, weren't we, at this stage? And then obviously ran out of steam, got injuries, ended up not winning the thing. This season, I would say we're in a stronger position, obviously, but I would still love us to do some business. I would still love to see maybe someone come in at left back, maybe someone come in, another body in midfield. But what I would say about transfers is I never think there's any nuance at all about the debate around them. So, you know, I think fans just say, or a lot of fans will just say, buy players. And it's like, well, if they're looking at Liverpool right now and say, like, I'd love another defensive midfielder, but Gravenberch's been unbelievable, played almost every minute for Liverpool in the games that matter. So a good defensive midfielder from elsewhere in Europe is going to look at that and go, I'm not going to get a game.
Exactly.
And I think fans never talk about that side of things enough. There's a bit of a shiny new player syndrome about new players, but equally, since Slot's come in, as you say, nothing's happened really. You know, we got Chiesa, bit of a cut price deal really. We got the goalkeeper from Valencia coming for next season, which doesn't sate anyone's appetite for transfers because you've got to wait. So there is this, as you say, it's very much online, I would say, though. You know, when I go to the match, when I go to the pub after the match, before the match, whatever, I don't feel like everyone's doing it there. Yeah. Everyone's just enjoying the game and enjoying how well we're playing. But online, it's everywhere. You know, there's this FSG hashtag and there's a demand for transfers as though that's the only way you win. And we've proved that it's not the only way you win. And, you know, the net, like Man United, I think, are top for net spend the last few years. How's that worked out? Do you know what I mean? So transfers aren't the only answer, are they? But I think a lot of people treat it as though they are.
It's coaching your way out of the problem as well, isn't there? Like, you know, sometimes signing players, that can be the solution. But if Gravenberch was mentioned there, I think it's a great example. They didn't sign a player. Arne Slot's brilliance solved an issue. Yeah. So Chelsea fans at the moment are going, we need to sign players. That's the last thing we need. Surely if this manager is capable, he'll be able to find the solution within the players that are already there and ultimately coach your way out of a problem.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. We all get excited by transfers and we always want to see our team improve. And sometimes when we talk about a coach, I almost think sometimes a coach's role is not almost just buying players. It's actually improving the players that he inherits. So when you actually look at Slot, Gravenberch looks a different player. Luis Diaz looks a different player. Gakpo looks a different player. So he's had an influence there. So these are players that were, some of them bought 18 months ago, but they look completely different players. But there's no doubt the fact Liverpool haven't bought anyone this window, didn't really buy anyone in the summer, there must be a big pot of money there to buy whoever they want maybe next summer.
Yeah, because Thiago left as well, didn't he?
Is there anyone you know better than us? What areas are Liverpool looking at? Are they looking at this January window or are they looking more in the summer?
I'm not aware of Liverpool making moves in this market, and it's really refreshing to hear somebody speaking like that about transfers as a whole and the insatiable appetite of social media. And it gets incredibly toxic at pretty much every club and disturbing at times as well. It's become a sport within the sport, and many seem to care far more about the transfers than the actual football, with no care about the ramifications and the pressure it seems to put on clubs, which in many cases does permeate inside the club or occasionally into the stadium, and is just unhealthy.
James, Arsenal fan, great to have you back. You are the team right now, I think it was spoken about, or whose probably fan base demanding a signing, probably more than anyone in the attacking third. I mean, is it specifically about a number 9 and a striker, or is it just a great attacking player?
I think they came into the season an attacker light, to be honest. They let a number of attacking players go. Smith Rowe, Nketiah, Reece Nelson all went out the door. There wasn't really an obvious replacement for any of those guys. They've lost Saka, which is massive. Like the productivity he brings is huge. Jesus looked like he was coming back to form, and now he's gone rest of the season. I think they definitely need to do something, and I would be looking more at the centre forward than the wide areas, because they beat Wolves at the weekend, in spite of everything, great result. But when that full-time whistle blew, Kai Havertz, he collapsed effectively. He plays so many games, so many minutes. As an Arsenal fan, I've been so impressed and surprised by how hard he's worked and how physical he's been. But he can't keep it up, and there's almost no alternative within the squad, so they've got to get something done. When you say get someone done, it's an interesting one in January, because you think of who's available, and you get to a situation where you're actually just buying someone almost for an 18-month period in some ways, because in the summer you want to get the real guy that you need. Do you think it's a case of you'd rather wait to get the actual one that you want, or do you think you're in such a situation, delicate situation in terms of the title, injuries, that they just have to sign somebody? That is such a tough decision. And one of the issues at Arsenal is the guy whose job it was to make those decisions was Edu, the sporting director, to balance the needs of the team with the long-term plan. The guy who stepped into the role, Jason Ato, he was his understudy. Now he's there on an interim basis. And it's basically the most difficult job interview you could ever have. What do Arsenal do? Do they hold fire, wait for a Benjamin Sesko, or try for an Alexander Isak? Or do they find a short-term solution? And I think maybe the best answer is to sort of try and strike a balance. I think of the Leandro Trossard signing a couple of years ago. That was a January signing that was really effective, actually. He came in, he's played 100 times for Arsenal. I think he's, for goals and assists, he's on about 40 from 100 games. It's really, really good. He was a proven Premier League player, not massive money, not necessarily an obvious starter, but someone who made the squad a lot better. I wonder if there's someone out there in the Premier League who fits that bill, maybe.
You need a centre forward, though, don't you? I remember we did this start of the season, with looking at the Arsenal squad and thinking, centre forward. They definitely need a centre forward. How do you expect to win a league without a centre forward? Because even the ones you're talking about, Trossard's not a centre forward. Havertz, he's not an out-and-out centre forward. Jesus, you said, came back into form, got injured. Again, is he an out-and-out centre forward? I think it's very difficult to win any kind of competition, especially big league, without a centre forward. And I don't mean just one, maybe even 2 or 3.
Well, I mean, you could make the argument that, Nketiah was a centre forward, Balogun was a centre forward. They both went out and none have come in. So Arsenal are definitely short in that position. I think Kai's done well. He's got 14 goals.
I'm not saying he didn't do well. I'm just saying he's not. When I look at him, I don't think, wow, there's a brilliant centre forward.
I hear you. But I think in terms of what Mikel Arteta asked from his centre forward, it's a very complete package.
Yeah, there's all this false 9 Spanish stuff.
Yeah, you're not having it, are you?
No.
But I think he does bring a lot of that. But I think the category of players who would be better than him and who would offer more is small. And those players being available now in January and wanting to move and come to Arsenal right now, I don't know. I mean, I think you're scratching around.
Oh, you are now. I'm just saying, I think the mistake was made last pre-season.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. And I think now that dilemma they've got is, what do we do? It's not like they're 5 points clear at the top of the table and it's like we're pushing for the league. It's looking like in the league it might not be their year. So how big do you go? They've got other competitions, still in the Champions League. They're going really well in that. I think they should bring in someone who can provide competition and cover. And if it means they have to wait to get the guy, I personally would be all right with that.
Are you putting that on the manager or the club? Because I look at the business that you did in the summer and I look at the midfield player you signed, and I wasn't quite sure why or where he was going to fit in or where he was going to play. Are the fan base sort of frustrated that there's not more funds for Arteta, or that Arteta not wasted the funds but should have probably spent it more on attacking players rather than another defender and a central midfield player?
Listen, Arsenal have had their issue with the Cronkies over the years, but I don't think you can complain about the money that's been spent there. If you look at the last 5-year period, bringing in people like Declan Rice, and even what they paid for Havertz was a massive amount of money. They've done a lot of business, brought a lot of players in. I think that there's maybe a stylistic question about the players they recruited and the areas of the pitch. I mean, when you look at Mikel Arteta and the spending the club have done under him, the amount of money he spent on goalkeepers, defenders, holding midfielders, massively outstrips what he spent on attackers. And that's been a decision, right? He's built the team from the back, but I think we're seeing a bit of a shortfall there now. And that attacking third is in pretty urgent need of some additions.
James, what about the red card? We can't not ask you about the red card. Everyone's had their view, and you're the only one who hasn't.
I mean, I thought it was crazy, I've got to say. You know, you watch a lot of football. It was a cynical foul, yellow card all day long. I mean, as people who've played the game, I'd be interested in what you made of it.
I agree with what I said.
Yeah.
Cynical foul, yellow card.
But what really drove me mad is obviously the referee's giving it on the pitch, Michael Oliver's giving it on the pitch, but the video review is there to correct decisions that are wrong. And to me, that was a clear and obvious error. And I was incredibly frustrated seeing that stand. And, you know, we've been on the wrong end of a few decisions this year which have been debated. What's interesting about this one is I haven't really heard any debate.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it just felt strange, didn't it?
It's just a little trip, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Referees are horrendous though at the moment. I don't think enough is made of it, how bad the referees are.
I think enough is made of it.
I don't think it is though, because there seems to be like this kind of people rushing, let's respect referees and all this kind of stuff, but they are horrendous. They've got VAR to help them out. They're the highest paid they've ever been. They're full-time now. They have all these training things that you and Gary go and do at the start of the season with them, and nothing ever seems to change in terms of the decisions that they're making. They are just horrendous.
Do you think it's worse now? Because I sometimes think we forget about what it was like in the past, and we always think right now is the worst.
I think it is, because especially when you consider like everything that I just said in terms of, you know, they're all full-time now, they're all, you know, just working at being a referee, and then you look at it, they've got the help from the video assistants. I remember back in the day, it'd be, you'd know one or two referees, and you'd be like, oh my God, we've got him today. But generally speaking, most of them were okay, and then you could understand if they did make a mistake.
Yeah, you're a Man U fan, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm not blaming them for where we are. Like, we deserve to be.
Talking about in the past.
Yeah.
You've had them all sewn up.
That's what you like to say to make yourself feel better. But they are really bad.
We import refs, though. We don't import refs, but import players. I mean, we have the best players in the world playing in our league, but I'm not being funny. The English refs from out, they're not the best in the world. So why aren't we getting the best refs in the world?
But it'll come from the directives, though, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing that needs to change for me is VAR protects the refs. It never says this is wrong. It says, oh, you have a look, we think you're right. And there's been way too many times this season, especially where they've just gone clearly a wrong decision, but we'll back you.
Yeah.
Just don't get it.
I think it would do like PGMOL a massive favour if, for example, with this Lewis Skelly sending off, if they'd come out and said and owned it and been like, that was a mistake, we got it wrong. But it feels like every time they just double down, and it feels a bit like we're being gaslit, basically.
You get Dermot Gallagher on a Monday on Ref Watch, basically saying every decision's right, even though everyone said it's wrong. If they go, no, it's the right decision, or I can understand why he's giving. Not about understanding. You've got more tools than you've ever had, and you're making worse mistakes. We had a penalty on Saturday where the lads basically had a game of basketball, and the ref's looking at it going for about 6 minutes. I don't know, and you're like, one look, is it handball? You know what I mean? And
mistakes are human, aren't they? You know, they're human beings. Players are making mistakes out on that pitch every single day, but I think it's about accountability and responsibility and owning it when you get it wrong. And I think that's somewhere they really.
The worst thing is players react to it as they should when a horrendous decision, and they're getting booked and sent. It's like, what else do you expect them to do when you're making such a howler of a decision? Sometimes they stood right in front of it, and they did. Yeah, it's just.
Well, Adam, let's get back to the transfer window with Manchester United.
We ain't signing anyone. Let's move.
Where are you with Amorim right now? And you know this system, he's going to be looking to buy players for the system. It looks like they're looking at a left wing back. I've seen a couple of names as well. I like the manager, and I like how well spoken he is. I think he's made a few mistakes in games sometimes with some of his substitutions and things like that, but I think he's trying to learn as much as possible from the squad that he has at his disposal. Is that squad the worst in Manchester United's history?
The table doesn't lie, does it? I think that's how you have to. I didn't agree with you when you said he was wrong for saying that. I thought he was right to say that, and I was glad Bruno Fernandes came out the other day and was like, well, if you look at the league table, we are the worst team, definitely in the Premier League era, which is kind of covers my age range really. So they're the worst team that I've seen, and you know it doesn't look like we're going to finish anywhere above 10th. So I'd like to say yes, but that has to be the challenge for them. And I think he's been trying to do that with some of the things he says in press conferences, some of the things that he says in interviews, where he's trying to lay down the gauntlet to these boys and let them know that, look, at the moment, you're playing for Man United, but you're not performing and you're not going anywhere fast. Trying to give him a wake-up call.
Sorry for interrupting. You know what he said yesterday about Rashford? About he'd rather play the kit man or goalkeeping coach and stuff like that. Now, we're in the media, we're all part of it, and it's great, these great quotes, and it makes great headlines. So for me, I'm looking at it thinking, this is great. But if he was my manager, if that was the Liverpool manager, I'd be thinking, I want him to keep a lid on that a little bit. I don't want that to sort of blowing. Do you understand?
Yeah, I think he's honest to a fault sometimes.
Fan?
And I think if you're trying to get rid of the player, probably don't come out and say that, because other clubs are going to look at it and go, well, we won't give you more percentage towards the wages, or we won't give you a bigger transfer fee. So I think he was a little bit honest to a fault with that one. But I also kind of understand the situation he's been put in with that, because he's come in as a new manager at a club. Like, I'm a big fan of Marcus Rashford, and I'd rather return it around at United. But you come in as manager, you're trying to get a team, you're trying to change the culture, and you've got one of your key players saying, my future lies elsewhere, or my challenge is that. What else do you expect him to do? Like, he can't just chuck you in the team if that's your mindset and the way you're thinking. And what kind of message does that send to the other players if you're picking him for a squad and he doesn't want to be there? Like, so I think it's the right thing to do, but I'd rather, if you're trying to get rid of him and we have got all these PSR issues and stuff, probably don't say that.
I think Marx has let a lot of people down, really, with his attitude, and I think that's what the manager's trying to say. You think of the young players coming through the team, you think of Garnacho, they're looking up to people like Marcus now. He's 26, 27 years of age, and he's clearly not training properly. He's not living his life properly. They're the example that these people should look at. So I think Marcus, look, I remember years ago when I told the manager I didn't want to play in that Arsenal game, the cup game, and the meeting we had afterwards, 2 or 3 days afterwards, and I thought, I'm going to get a right bollock here. He said to me, the worst thing you did is let your teammates down. And that really stuck with me, because I wasn't really thinking about that. And now I think Marcus Rashford is doing exactly the same. Okay, he's not refusing to play, but in the way he's behaving and the way he's training, in a way, he is saying, I don't want to be involved with these. So I think the fact of letting your teammates down in that dressing room, he should be banished from the dressing room, really. If he's in and around that and young people are seeing that as an example, the sooner he's gone, the better.
I get frustrated with Rashford, just the amount we talk about him, but we are talking about him, and I'm going to ask you a question about him now. He's a player that it baffles me that he gets talked about as like he's on the move, and I'll read in a paper, it'll say like Barcelona and Real Madrid and PSG, and I'm like, I know he's got a big PR thing behind him, Marcus Rashford. It just feels like this big machine around that's just pumping these stories out about him, about where he's going to go. Is the real interest in Marcus Rashford in some of the biggest clubs in Europe? David?
It is a very tricky situation, and it does seem that relationship is broken. There's also a lot of different...
David, what's tricky about it?
Well, he's on a massive contract. He's a Manchester United player through and through, born and bred.
He doesn't want to be now, does he?
Well, it wasn't sort of him that initiated this process.
Well, by his behaviour, it is.
It sounds like you're part of the PR machine.
No. So
there are his behaviour and the way he's acting. Them first couple of games he played for Amorim, it didn't bother his ass.
Well, no,
he's almost telling you.
So just for the balance, not PR.
Balance.
When you speak to people around United, they criticise the training, and Rúben Amorim clearly has taken a dim view on that. And when you speak to people around Marcus Rashford, they say he's training really well, and he's.
Who do you believe they're the manager who's watching the training, or his PR company who don't watch the training?
Well, I don't know, because I'm not privy to the actual evidence on either side. But to answer your specific question, there is interest in him because of his quality that we've seen in the past, and that's why conversations have taken place with the likes of AC Milan, Borussia Dortmund, I think Juventus early on. There was some interest from the Premier League, but I think his decision was that he wanted to go abroad if he's going to move, and his preference is Barcelona. But Barcelona's extremely difficult financially. When you look at their squad, you ask yourself, how much do they need a player like Marcus Rashford? The door has never been closed at United because he's under contract until 2028. And so, that's why I think some of these comments suggesting available for selection and no issue between him and the coach is because both sides know they might have to go back together.
Sorry, David, is this interest still there? But it seems like it's all...
Right now,
a little bit, is it?
Right now, I don't know of anything being close. And so it brings you back to what we touched upon right at the start when you're thinking about, say, an Nkunku, Garnacho and certain other situations in the market where it could be a deadline day scramble, where the biggest problem in the Rashford situation is the finances involved.
I was going to say, what do United want?
Because definitely, if he was more affordable, I think he probably would have made the move by now. Maybe that's one of the factors that United
a loan move or
a loan move, most likely, just because it's 2028 and when somebody's not playing.
So what would they want then? Would they want like half his wages?
I think initially they would have wanted 100% of his wages covered, in excess of £325,000 a week. But as the market draws towards a close, you're going to, if you desperately want him out, you're going to accept lower. Then the club that's taking him can, as they get desperate with their own footballing circumstances or injuries, say, actually, we can dedicate a bit more money to this, or it's looking even tighter. We're there for him, but we can't even dedicate what we were initially thinking. And then you ask Marcus Rashford, are you willing to take a haircut on your salary? Most players wouldn't, because they've signed their contract and it's their prerogative. How much do you want to get playing elsewhere? How much do you want to work your way back into the plans at Man United? Is that door truly open for you to work your way back in? It's a complete mess, and I can't predict the outcome. I think it would be surprising if something can't be resolved for him to play the second half of the season elsewhere, but because of the finances involved and the complications, there's no guarantee he'll move.
I think he's going to have massive regrets, I genuinely think he's going to have some huge
agree,
regrets. Like, I don't doubt his love for the club. He's obviously someone that's spent a lot of time at the club, fan of the club and all those kind of things. And maybe he has felt like a scapegoat over the last couple of years, but what we're seeing at the moment is just self-sabotage. Like, he's the only one he's not going to get... If these clubs don't come in for you, then what? If you're still at Manchester United to the end of the season, then who's going to come in for you in the summer?
Do you think he's sort of fallen out of love with football a little bit? Because it's shone so bright so early in his career, so much attention around him. A lot of it negative in the media that he's been in the game for so young, still so long, still so young. Do you think he's kind of fallen out of love a little?
Well, he's said that he still loves football, he still loves playing football, and I have no doubt. Whilst Amorim is saying,
does it?
Yeah, he doesn't look like it. And the manager, it's his interest to want him to play.
He's not played well for 3 years, and we're still talking about him. That's your point.
Well, he scored 30 goals.
You know what?
In that period.
When is what?
He scored 30 goals
in 3 years.
No, a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. Yeah.
And then he got a new contract.
Which is why we're talking about. But I think it's a good point you make. He doesn't look like he wants to play football, and I don't know if he thinks going to another club all of a sudden he's just going to get it back like that. There's no guarantee that will happen.
The thing that frustrates me about him is that we talk about him as much as we talked about Wayne Rooney, and the level of player is just completely different levels, and a lot of it. And I must say this because listen, we're all in the game, the media game, and he's not just the only one. A lot of these top footballers now have these PR machines around them, and it's just constant media stuff getting pumped out. I just think it's very simple. Me, if I knew Marcus, I'd just say, listen, go into training. Be early, do your work, train, give there's nothing else, there's no other answer to all these games, and he said this, and the agent said that, and Amorim said this, and all this, it's all bullshit. Just go in and train really hard. That's it. There's no secret, and give absolutely everything, and all this only feeding, and you've just said about him scoring 30 goals there straight away as soon as Scholes, he said something. Now, I'm not saying you're here to defend him, you've given both sides the hang, but I know you're getting information from all this thing. Did you ever have people? Who are these people? Are these players? Who are they? I only had my dad. These people, just go in and train and give it everything for Man United, getting paid 300 grand a week. Yeah. All the rest of it just...
But the manager would want him to
play. You know what? You do that for your own sanity, though, Jamie, because you think, even if I leave, I know I've done it in the right way. I've been in every day. I've still got a chance to play for Man United.
Unbelievable.
I know we're not very good, but still. The last 6 months of the season.
Question about whether or not Amorim's handling this issue correctly. I think he absolutely is. Because his truth and his honesty is going to see that vision realised for United. It reminds me a little bit of what Arteta did at Arsenal right at the beginning about Guendouzi, Aubameyang especially, where these weren't, and Ozil, they just weren't right. Class players, elite players for Arsenal at the time, but they, maybe Guendouzi aside, but they did the right thing by forcing them out of the football club because the vision was what was important. I think I'm saying the same thing from
The
Amorim.
trouble Amorim's got, though, is not just 3 of them.
No.
You could be talking about 13, 14 of them he doesn't want.
Greg, listen, another person who was disappointed at the weekend. Is this a blip, this result at Bournemouth, or is that a worry that this European journey that you're probably getting ready for next season could be coming to a halt?
I think it was, looking back, it was probably much needed. You know, we've been flying high. We've had an incredible winter since the last time we've been on and improved places again. But Bournemouth are an excellent team, and I think we were a bit naive at the weekend. It showed. We've got one of the best defences in the league, and we just opened up for them. I think it shows that Bournemouth are the real deal, to be honest. Put a bit of spotlight on them instead of us for a few weeks, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, it was disappointing, but we're third in the league, and we're still third after a result like that.
The position you find yourselves in, it's going to be difficult to be there in that position maybe next season or in say 2 or 3 years' time. Do you think it's imperative that you need to buy someone right now to try and help you get over the line? Because, as I said, to be in this position again in the next 3 or 4 years might be difficult. Or do you think it's a case of actually just keeping what we've got, don't sort of bring someone in to, ruin the apple cart?
Well, for the first time since we've come back up, we're in a position now where in January we can plan for a Premier League season next season. So we've got Edu, behind the scenes, although he's not officially with us yet. And they're planning. So that excites me because...
Did he leave Arsenal to go to Forest?
Of course he did.
Gone
The whole project.
Why would you say it like that?
It's Olympiacos.
We're all thinking it. You don't leave Arsenal to go to Forest.
It's Olympiacos and everybody.
Yeah. Oh, it's a big...
No, it's mainly Forest.
You'll have no
it just shows the ambition.
You'll have no centre-forwards next year.
Yeah. The biggest 2 signings that we've done this winter is obviously Murillo and Wood, getting them tied down for long-term deals because everyone's talking about Murillo. His price tag's gone up and up.
How old is Chris Wood?
33, I believe.
They gave him a 2-year deal, didn't they?
Yeah, but I mean, he's deserved it. He's proven that he needed it. Unfortunately, they both probably had the poorest games since they played for us on Saturday after their big deals. So we will be looking at people, of course we will. We sign players, that's what Forest do.
That's what you do.
Yeah,
I mean, usually a team who've been criticised for, panicking or doing crazy things in the transfer market, and I never thought I'd see Manchester City do it. But that's what they've done in the January transfer market, haven't they? They're acting like a team who are fighting relegation.
I think we needed to, though. If you look at... Well, I read a piece in The Athletic, I don't know if it was David that wrote it, and it's basically said that the people high up at City did not expect us to win the league last year. Pep's contract was coming to an end. He would have been finishing the end of this season, and he's got 2 more after this season. So
you're spinning this as a positive.
So what I'm saying is it's a car crash this season. Basically, last year you could argue we got away with it. We won a 4th league title in a row. It's outrageous, as we know. But we almost got away with it. We didn't spend almost anything in the summer, which obviously we've spent years gone by. But that was a mistake. Rodri gets injured, everything goes wrong, and obviously this season we're 4th in the league. We've done a little bit better recently, but the amount of losses we had, the amount of points we dropped has found us absolutely nowhere near Liverpool. Hopefully we'll get top 4. But yeah, we brought in 3 players. It's, thankfully for me, I was glad we've gone for the strategy you're just going to say we've thrown money at the wall, I know that, but we've gone for the strategy of, when we sign a Bernardo Silva, these players we brought in the past, no one can say they knew everything about him. And we've signed 3 players here. Yes, the young Marmoush's been absolutely on fire in the Bundesliga this season, so he's obviously a bit more well-known. But the other 2 defenders, Rice, whatever you call him.
What did you think about what happened at the weekend? I felt really... I don't know how everybody else felt. Listen, Man City, when I watch Man City play, I don't want them to win because they're rivals of Liverpool, but I felt really uncomfortable watching that lad play centre. I felt really sorry for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's 20. He's from Uzbekistan. He doesn't speak a word of English. I think it was stupid to put him in the team, but we almost didn't have any other options because, as you know, we've got Club Brugge.
John Stones was sub.
He can't play because these guys haven't been registered for the Champions League. Stones is a bit iffy. If he plays that game, gets injured, we don't have any centre-backs for the Champions League.
Yeah, listen,
we've got to prioritise that.
I heard Pep say that after the game, and I didn't think about the John Stones, but could he have put like Rico Lewis full-back and Guardiola centre-back? And I'm not just saying it to be clever after the event. If the lad can't speak English, he's only had a week's training, and you're playing Chelsea, one of the top teams in the league as well, it just felt like,
The first 5 minutes was a disaster. He obviously gave away a goal, got booked, gave away a free kick. But I think after that, I think he did pretty well. And I know you're going to 5 minutes.
Because he hid after that.
I don't think he did hide. He was sliding into tackles with Cole Palmer. He's a bit of a meathead, and at the end of the day, he's had a baptism of fire there.
That's one of the nicest things that was said that he's a meathead.
He's going to learn from. I mean, you can't have almost now that's out the window. He's had probably the best introduction for him personally. He's going to learn from that, and it can't really get worse than that 5 minutes. So I think he's going to be a great player. And yeah, that game on Wednesday now is making me nervous, but we should have already been knocked out, in my opinion, the way we've played. I was saying just then.
It was interesting because I seen Pep say on Wednesday it's a final.
It is.
And I think most people would expect Man City to beat Bruges at home. But
unbeaten in 20 they are, by the way.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah. But what I would say is, are you worried about not being in the competition next season? Is that in the back of your mind?
I think after the Chelsea, I'm not saying we're guaranteed to get top 4 now. After the Chelsea game, I'm a lot more confident of getting in top 4. Even after the run we've had, we've only won a couple lately and we're still in the top 4. So I think we probably will get top 4, but it's the worry of missing out on Champions League football from January onwards. It would be absolutely embarrassing if we lost that game. We've got 8 points in 7, which would get you knocked out. Previously, in the other format, you're getting knocked out, definitely, with that kind of form. So, yeah, it's just the fear of not being in the Champions League. Last 5, 6, 7 years, under Pep, we've been in the last stages every year without fail. We've won it once, obviously, now. But it's the fear of not being in there. That's just embarrassing. To get knocked out, to not even be in the top 24 teams in Europe is not acceptable. So,
well, talking about embarrassing, Rory, was that how you describe Chelsea's second half performance at Man City?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could go a bit bigger than that as well, Jamie. It wasn't only that performance; it's everything since we last spoke. I think, like on the 22nd of December, I think it was, we played Everton. We went away to Everton, and because of circumstance, Liverpool not playing. If we had beaten Everton, we would have gone top of the league. Since then, not only are we not competing for the league anymore, but we are now nowhere near being good enough, and I don't think we're going to make it into the Champions League spots. And yeah, that second half against Manchester City, it was catastrophic. It was lacking in everything. It was a pitiful performance. And I think Enzo Maresca needs to hold his hands up here and admit that he's getting a lot of it wrong.
What's he getting wrong?
I mean, I think he's getting an awful lot wrong. I really didn't like, when he came out and spoke about Chelsea not being in a title race. Since then, our form really dipped, and I don't understand what's in it for him to say that we're not in a title race, because I think it kind of normalises mediocrity. It makes average results acceptable. If you're not competing for the league, a point at Goodison Park, for example, Sean Dyche Everton team, is quite a good point. If you're competing for the league, a point at Goodison Park is probably not good enough. So I feel like he just kind of normalised everything, and I don't really know what was in it for him to do that. It reminded me a bit, I don't know, it's probably 10 years ago now, Mourinho called us, do you remember the little horse? Chelsea being the little horse in the title race. We could have won the league I think it's 2014. We could have won the league that year, but we finished 3rd. And I don't understand why he came out and said we're not in a title race, because I think it was in our interest to believe. Big up the team, big up the belief, big up the...
I think he's trying to take a bit of pressure off the players, isn't it? Of course he is. I think you're a bit harsh on Maresca there, because we were sat there, and I thought he'd be the first one to go, because he had such a mess to deal with. And I think he really sorted that out, didn't he? It's like when you say it's come to that point where they've got to a point. Yeah, they look a really good team and then just gone a little bit.
The form since the Christmas period, which is a defining moment of the season, isn't it? Generally, league titles, Christmas period, Easter period, how do you get on in those periods will pretty much define who you are. We have been woeful, like absolutely woeful. We've been beaten by Ipswich, drawn with Palace, but beat by Fulham at home for the first time in, 50 years? And I think
centre-half's been a problem for you, hasn't it?
Centre-half's
and the keeper's a problem.
But you see, again, the keeper being a problem, at some point, I think that it has to be that it isn't the keeper's fault. If you perennially play somebody who isn't good enough, at what point does it become not... Robert Sanchez is the worst goalkeeper in the Premier League. That's not an extreme thing to say. That's not a revolutionary thing to say. Everybody knows that. Enzo Maresca, therefore, knows that, and yet he persists playing him. Who's responsible? Like, he's made more mistakes than any other keeper in the league, apart from Ipswich's keeper. They said something about 5 mistakes, and when that was put to him, he's made 5 mistakes directly leading to a goal. And if you say 5, on some level it doesn't sound like a lot. There's 5 mistakes. We've only conceded 30. Like percentage-wise, like Carol Vorderman will tell you, like that's quite significant. It's like that's quite 5 out of 30.
Get it on next week.
Yeah, she'll tell you.
What does it say about the other keepers you've got though?
Well, this is a problem.
Haven't
But I'd
you got
rather have an
7 keepers
outfield
or
player in goal than this fella. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. Like it is ridiculous. You can't keep playing him. You have to do something else. Petrovic last season was better than him. There's Jorgensen who's playing in the Conference League. Who look, I know we're only playing Shamrock Rovers, but he looks all right. Like I can't understand how you can constantly play Sanchez, and then now this I thought was a killer. In order to justify playing Sanchez, he basically hung out the other players to dry. So it was put to him, oh, you know, Sanchez isn't doing well enough. 5 mistakes. He went, have you seen how many goals Nicholas Jackson has missed? he went, have you seen how many times Moises Caicedo's given the ball away? Like, whose team are you? What are you doing? Like, how can that be the justification?
You know, in terms of, you know, the project, the new owners, the money they spend, they take out Pochettino. There must be a real nervousness there right now that if they miss out on Champions League football, especially if it's top 5, because I'm sure Pochettino would have looked, certainly how he finished the season. I know you weren't a big fan, but I know the way they finished the season, what they've done this season, you'd almost say, well, that'd be... I'm sure Pochettino's looking at Chelsea now thinking, well, I could have done that, because with an extra few players and the way we were building. So do you think there'd be a few nerves at the top end of the club?
Most certainly. I mean, Pochettino's actually been proven correct. You say that I wasn't his biggest fan, and you're absolutely right. But I did want him to stay. I didn't like him because he was far too Tottenham, in my opinion, to have ever got the Chelsea job. But once he was in the job, I concede that towards the end of last season, the run that we went on, we did very well. We finished strongly. We qualified for Europe. We would have been in a different European competition if Manchester United didn't beat City in the cup final. So it was all going quite well. And Pochettino will now be laughing because one of the things that he really did amplify was Trevor Chalobah. It was Trevor Chalobah, Conor Gallagher. They were the players that were at the epicentre of when Chelsea found rhythm and form towards the end of last season. Conor Gallagher had to be sold. He had to leave because we had to play Enzo Fernandez, who is a very average midfielder, in my opinion. And Trevor Chalobah, who, again, was brilliant last season and is, in my opinion, the best defender at the club, was forced out. If that isn't a microcosm of everything going wrong at Chelsea, the sporting directors being totally inept, they forced Chalobah out, they put him up for sale, they totally disrespect him. And then they go begging cap in hand when the 2 boys that we signed from France, from Monaco, like, they're just nowhere near good enough.
They dragged him back as well, haven't they?
Begged him to come back, and then he turns up, he's man of the match in his first game. It's really worrying because the trajectory that we're on...
How worrying can it be? You're like 4th in the league.
No, we're not, but it's the
How worried are you?
In
How
terms
worried
of what,
are you?
In terms of, yeah.
I'm petrified.
He's deflecting here. Yeah, this is projection. But look, in terms of to answer that,
yeah.
How worried am I? For what? Champions League qualification?
What could possibly worry?
I don't believe Chelsea make the Champions League now.
Oh, well, maybe you do it next year. Well, don't worry about it.
But again, and do you know? Okay, here's a ramification. 3 years. So Cole Palmer didn't play in the Champions League last year. He's currently playing in the Conference League. I could be wrong here, but I don't believe Cole Palmer goes 3 consecutive seasons not playing Champions League football. I can't see a world where one of the best players, in my opinion, in the country, somebody who scored a goal for England in a European final, is happy to go 3rd year out of Europe's premier competition.
Rory, that Everton game, I was so surprised because we were under Sean Dyche, so we didn't want to leave our penalty area, and yet we had the 2 best chances to win the game. And what really surprised me, the last half an hour, I thought these are going to go for it now because they could have gone top that day.
Yeah, we could have gone top.
I thought we're definitely not going to have the ball the last half an hour, and he was so sort of passive. It was like a point. A point was good enough. He put Madueke on late on, and he gave you a little spark. But that was the day I thought these aren't really, because someone like Liverpool or even Arsenal, they would have just gone for it. City in the past, they'd have just gone for it, and he did seem pleased that day.
I think he's normalised. Part of suggesting that we're not in a title race, it was to just normalise mediocrity, to make it
take the pressure off. But
a point at Palace suddenly becomes a good point. And I mean, it's got to the stage where I don't think we make Champions League football.
He was right though, wasn't he?
I was right, actually.
No, he was right.
I was right. You remember at the beginning of this, I said we're not very good, and
no, what the
manager
was right. What I saying, we're not in the title race.
What? Yeah, but I feel like he's been proved right. It was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. He said we're not in the title race, and therefore we're not in the title race. He's been proved right because he's engineered it that way.
Flav, are we...
Here we go.
Are we...
This is what I'm here.
Should Tottenham be making a change in the dugout?
I don't think it makes much difference as it stands, given, I know no one wants to hear it, but it's the reality is the injury issues, no manager comes in and fixes this. So...
Whoa, stop you there. You think no manager could fix the injury issues?
I don't think a manager comes in and makes all the injuries
So
better.
do you not think the injuries that Tottenham get are down to the way the manager maybe trains, the way the team play?
Okay, all right. So if we want to keep Postecoglou, we need to back him in the way that the squad is significantly sized to play his brand of football. I do think there's a relation between the injuries and his style of play, yeah. Will a manager come in and make us a little bit more defensive and ask the centre backs to run less or less intensity, less short bursts, high intensity rather, then maybe that will fix the issue. But if there is this vision that Postecoglou is the guy who will get us there, and that's debatable, then you back him at this stage because that's what the plan is, whether it works out or not. I've gone from absolutely adoring Postecoglou to, being a believer in him, to maybe just hoping it works, to now I need to see it work when the players come back.
For me, I think he needs to be allowed to bring the players back between now and the end of the season, see him with his best team as such. But this idea that it's all about injuries just doesn't stack up, because you go back his last 50 games, that we looked at it on Monday Night Football, I think they've lost 50% of the last 50 games when that sort of initial 10 or 12 game run at the start of last season finished. This has been going on when you've had the centre-backs playing. And even this season when you've played Crystal Palace, you played Ipswich at home, teams who you should beat, when you had your best team, you still lost those games.
Well, we didn't have our best team because Van der Ven wasn't playing in those games, and Van der Ven's crucial too.
He played in one of the games.
He did, but
and Romero played in the other one, and you're playing Ipswich at home and you're playing Crystal Palace away.
Yeah, agreed. But if you look statistically...
And the idea that you're not going to have one of your back five out in any game in a Premier League game is just fanciful.
Very true, but the drop-off in our centre-backs is gargantuan compared to perhaps other football clubs. But then you take the back two and the goalkeeper out of any team, then you're going to have issues.
He was playing them. Yeah,
I know he was. I've been listening to you, Jamie, over the last 6 months. I know exactly how you feel about Spurs at the moment. It's difficult, and it's just a waiting game, and I don't know whether or not Postecoglou is the guy. I think there's been a massive shift in opinion about him in the Tottenham fan base. If it's 50-50 now, that would probably be where I'd estimate it to be. You can't lose as many games as we have. 3 points around possible 33 is outrageously bad, whether you have injuries or not. But is the goal to change? Do you know what? I'm saying all this stuff. None of it really changes with Daniel Levy and ENIC at the football club, because they don't operate in the way that other clubs at our level do operate at. You look at Arsenal and when they bought Declan Rice, there isn't a world where Tottenham would have pulled off a transfer like that. And in terms of revenue, not recent stature and recent draw, you'd say that's with Arsenal for sure, but in terms of revenue and the amount of money available to buy players, it's not a huge difference between Tottenham and Arsenal. But if you talk about Osimhen going to a football club, where's he going? He's going to go to Arsenal. Why would Declan Rice choose Arsenal over Tottenham? Because Tottenham would never be in that situation. And that comes down from the leadership and ownership of the football club. What is their motives? What do they want from Spurs? They know how to generate huge amounts of money because we're in the top 10 richest clubs in the world without winning anything. So they do that bit brilliantly, but when is the club and the football team ever going to be the focus? One League Cup in 20-odd years is not good enough.
But he has spent money, Postecoglou. I appreciate, I'm not backing Daniel Levy or ENIC here. I totally back your stance on that. But I also concede that a lot of managers haven't been backed. Pochettino hasn't been backed off the back of getting to the Champions League final. But he spent a fortune, Postecoglou.
I'm not saying he hasn't been backed. I'm saying that the profile of player that will elevate us to a potential title-winning challenge just isn't there. That the appetite to do that deal isn't at Tottenham.
Because you haven't won a trophy for 20 years.
No, but wouldn't that change with Daniel Levy if he shifted towards and operated a bit more the way that Eddie did at Arsenal?
I'm not sure it's as much the appetite of the club to bring them type of players to the club. I'd be surprised if them type of players want to go to the club.
Yeah, but you have to change from it has to come from the owners of the football club if they want to be ambitious in that way.
I agree, but when Declan Rice is leaving West Ham, do you think, am I going to go to Arsenal or Tottenham?
No, correct, but Tottenham would never even be in that conversation. With enough money, you can convince a player who has gone to Turkey to play for Galatasaray and Osimhen to come to Tottenham, right, with enough money. You could do that. But we would never, and that's the issue.
Solanke, though, you did spend money on a centre forward, big money on a centre forward.
Yeah, but we also signed 2 18-year-old kids that, as it turns out, are Premier League ready, but probably that couldn't have been. Like, we signed one out-and-out player that improved our first team. And in a January transfer window, when they can react to this injury crisis, and this is a injury issue that I've never seen at another football club in the Premier League history.
Bournemouth.
I might be wrong. No, not over the amount of time that we've had to deal with this. They could have done something in the transfer window to alleviate the problems that are currently in front of Ange Postecoglou, and they've chosen not to do it. I know there's 5 days left, but as David said, there's loads of things.
It makes no difference. If you've got a manager who's going to set up, regardless of who you play, in this gung-ho way, that you're going to go, if you score 3, we'll score 4, you can't play that way, and it's irrelevant if Timo Werner is the guy that's going to score you the goals. It's like you can do that at Celtic when you're slapping up Kilmarnock or whatever, but you can't do that in the Premier League.
Where would you?
You know what, Rory? Though you can do it in the Premier League, because they have done it in the Premier League. I know they went to United and won 3-0, which isn't.
Where
also
went
to City as well.
A good season for Spurs. Where would we finish? A good season.
8th.
A good season for Spurs. Where would we finish?
I always think if people
5th or 6th, I'd say.
Okay, so before Van der Ven and Romero's injuries, we're 5th, 3 points behind Arsenal, and that's 2 players. We've lost 14 at the moment. You can't legislate for this. You can't.
No, you can't.
Far be it from me to give Spurs advice, because I'm very happy with the job Postecoglou is doing right now. But I think if you've got a tricky ownership situation, is it not even more important that you have the right man in the dugout?
Yeah.
And I think back to Arsenal and when Arteta came in, part of the job he did was, I think, actually getting a degree of buy-in from the owners, the Cronkies, that hadn't really been there previously. Like, he set a culture and a mentality that the owners thought, we've got a chance, we can invest now. And I just don't think, with Postecoglou, it just feels like he's just drifting at this point.
I think that, weirdly, Daniel Levy looks at Postecoglou and thinks, I can't sack this guy because he's a foil for me. Like, the attention is focusing very laser sharp on Daniel Levy at the moment. It's going to be worse if he gets rid of Postecoglou, who's willing to take everything on his shoulders, probably wrongly. But it could be that relationship works out and he backs him accordingly. But genuinely, I believe that Spurs will never, ever kick on with Daniel Levy running this football club.
I saw something I reported in the newspaper yesterday I thought was interesting, because I think they're actually 2 separate issues. You've got Daniel Levy here, and this is like the big picture of the club. And you've got Postecoglou, and I both think they've got serious questions to ask. But the newspaper article was about how much Tottenham's revenue is spent on wages, and Tottenham's revenue, I think 42% went on wages, where every other big team was like 60.
Yeah.
I think Liverpool's was 63, which is quite high for some of the other, but City's was in the 50s, and the fact that Tottenham, right now they're starting to bring in money like the other teams do, but so you never are going to get those players if you don't pay them the wages.
No, you're right. And we cut our wage bill by 30 million last summer. We lost Ndombele, Højbjerg, a couple of others, and we're paying less than we had done previously. There's a direct correlation between money spent on wages and where you finish in the league. More or less, you get anomalies like we've got this season with Spurs and United being where they are. But generally, that's what you'd see. But there's not a willingness to do it at the moment. And until Daniel Levy goes, or a minority shareholder comes in with a different motive, nothing really is going to change.
Baz, you're a man who's got new ownership and a new manager, so you're bouncing, yeah? Happy?
Bouncing, very happy, very happy. First time I've done this for a while where Everton have won a game and can sit here smiling. But it's going well, obviously. We great result at the weekend and played great, but we defended brilliantly and we'd had a result against Spurs. The week before, you have to say, look, in more trouble than Everton do right now, but yeah, it's good. I saw the signs against Villa in his first game that things were going to be different. It wasn't have everyone in the box and just hope that you get a corner. They were on the front foot, and even though they lost the game, I don't think they deserve to lose the game. I don't think they deserve to win it, but I think it's draw would have been the right result.
You know what I feel that the last 2 games have given you? Obviously, the most important thing, staying in the Premier League, but almost that feeling that you can go to the game feeling we're not going to get relegated, and you can almost enjoy a little bit the end of the season. Goodison, that thing of the new stadium? Was that, because that was my, not my fear as such, but it was almost that feeling that you couldn't almost enjoy this last season at Goodison Park because it was just a fear about, actually, might not be in the Premier League.
Yeah, a lot of that, to be fair, a lot of it's come from David Moyes, is speaking in the, I know what he's done on the pitch, but just his press conferences and stuff. I know a lot of Evertonians have stopped listening to Sean Dyche's press conferences. You know, he was asked a few weeks ago about trying to get Goodison bouncing for its last season, and he said, doesn't make the players any better. And it's like, what kind of messaging is... I heard, you know, you've questioned Amorim and we've questioned Maresca, but to me, you're telling the players that they're not very good. Oh, they're not going to be very good. So, you know, when I found some of the Everton players' comments in the last few days have been only reaffirmed what I thought anyways, that, you know, they're talking about Jake O'Brien just done an interview the weekend saying, oh yeah, well the difference is we're going after teams where it was just, oh, we're terrified of everybody, you know, and I'm sure he's scared of himself in the mirror, Dyche, when he walks, well, he should be, but when he walks past it, because we just never, ever went after anybody with him. It was, can we score off a corner or a set piece or maybe a breakaway? And I think what Moyes has done is come in and go, at Goodison, we're going to go after everybody. We're going to lose games, 100% we're going to lose games. Away, it might be a bit more a Saturday, which is a little bit more pragmatic. We know we're not the greatest team in the world, but I've said on here consistently, these players are better than the results. They're better. Now, that might mean the 14th rather than 17th. I'm not saying the European, because they're not. We know we need better players, but I think that's what he's given us. And now, certainly the 2 home games we've had, I've gone into Goodison lighter, A, because the other fella's not in the dugout, but B, just because it feels a lot more positive. And we've lost at home game, we've won a home game, so it's about
Does that show you the difference that sort of a manager can have in that, you know, we've all watched David Moyes' teams, we've watched Sean Dyche's teams, they're not a million miles away from each other in sort of how they go about it, you know.
Not a million, no.
No, what I'm saying is you're not going for Roberto Martinez.
No, absolutely.
My point being is it's almost the feeling that David Moyes is one of us, he's an Evertonian, he gets it, you know, we hear that all the time, but he gets it. There's definitely that feeling, isn't there, of positivity when you've got someone in the dugout who you feel like, he feels like one of us a little bit. And when I think of David Moyes, I almost think he's an Evertonian, isn't he, in some ways, you know, because he was there for so long.
Yeah, it's the identification with the manager, isn't it? We haven't really had it.
That was never there with Dyche.
It was never ever there with Dyche, ever.
People on the outside of Everton would look at the job Dyche did for Everton for the first couple of years and go, he did a good job there, kept you up a couple of times, but I know through being in the city and having family there was never that connection, was there, with the support?
No, and you know what, there's no problem in saying for 18 months he worked with difficult times, you know, we come in and we were in a tricky situation and he kept us up. The next year we've had points deductions and injuries and this, that and the other, and he did a decent job. Maybe the summer should have been handshake and off you go. But the club weren't in that position to do it. So, but this year he's just not got it. And it says it all. David Moyes has had one away game and he's won as many as Dyche did in a year. So that's where we were up to. And that's why when I hear people in the media or whatever saying, oh, you know, harsh sacking, I'm thinking we won 3 games in 19 and it's Everton. I don't care whether you think, you know, where Everton are in your mindset. Everton has still sort of won the league the 5th most times in history. They're not a team that should be fighting relegation, my opinion. So therefore, you have to look up, even if you're only looking up 1 or 2 places. And I'm looking now at Spurs and thinking we'll be above them in the next week or so. And I'm looking at United, gutted United scored. We're not that far away from them. Whereas for weeks, it's like, oh my God. With the new owners, with the new manager, it's give us that opportunity to go, actually, we're not a million miles away from like Palace and teams like that now. Of course, we're still involved in the rest of it, but just being able to look at other clubs and go, we might be able to get near them. And I think that's the key for me, is the messaging from the manager. And if he can grab everything together and go, sure it with Klopp at Liverpool when he grabbed everyone together. We've seen it with other managers. And Arteta, to a certain extent, I don't know how long that continues, but he grabbed Arsenal together. And when you're pulling everyone in the right direction, not every Evertonian, but a lot feel a little bit more optimistic than they did. That's the biggest thing.
Jordan from Leicester, is Ruud van Nistelrooy pulling everybody together at Leicester?
Not necessarily, but I think he's the least of the problems, to be honest. Like Baz says, we're pulling in opposite directions. You know, there's a rumoured fan protest before the Arsenal game. The board's a mess. The recruitment's a mess. And actually, despite Van Nistelrooy having a pretty difficult start, we had some difficult fixtures. We have got quite a few serious injuries. and we actually look a more cohesive unit, despite not scoring in 4 home games and conceding. It's a recipe for relegation. But bizarrely, we actually look a fairly better side. I thought yesterday actually was probably the best performance under Ruud. And I do have faith that he might just keep us up. But I think now it's 3 from 4.
Yeah.
Everton have started to pull away a little bit. We might be able to bring them back in.
Yeah.
Spurs aren't going to go there. You've not seen us play.
Think about what happened. Everton scored 1 goal in 6 games. They scored 3 in the first half against them. Then the next week, you beat them. They're going.
We only had 2 shots, to be fair.
I'm just saying. You're in this.
Well, let Scholesy speak. Scholesy, you know Ruud van Nistelrooy really well. Did you ever see him as management material when he was in the dressing room?
No, probably not. I think Leicester took a bit of a gamble on him, really, didn't they? And they seemed well happy in 3 or 4 games at Man United, which was good. But no, I've never really seen him as a coaching type. I know he did his little bit in Holland, and I'm not surprised it hasn't gone as well as he probably would have liked, because the experience just isn't there. You think of Everton employing David Moyes, and you think if Leicester employed David Moyes, yeah, they could have half a chance of staying up. Now look, they still might have half a chance of staying up after beating Tottenham at the weekend, but it's just that experience and that organisation. It's so vital when you come into these Premier League teams. He did it with West Ham as well, David Moyes. Ruud just hasn't yet got that history to say that he's going to get you out of it.
I think for Ruud, that result against Tottenham was massive, because
he could have gone after that, couldn't he?
I thought I was looking at the situation at Leicester in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I was thinking I think Leicester might make another change.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking they might go for like dice or something. No, I thought
we got them Saturday, and I was thinking, just hang on a little bit.
Was there that feeling in the fan? Because I know it gives you, table looks better. It's a huge, whatever Tottenham are going through, it's still a big result to go away to Tottenham and win for Leicester. But before that, was there that feeling that you might make another change? You said you're upset with the board.
I don't think there was a feeling that we'd sack him. I don't think we can afford to. We've kind of kicked the PSR can down the road. That still hangs over our head. And I think, that's why Moyes and Potter didn't want to touch the job. They didn't want to work with our board. And obviously they've got the PSR concern. The concern was Ruud was going to walk away. Obviously he did that at PSV, and I think he was probably a bit worried that, what it would look like if he did it again. But he's been rumoured to be frustrated with the lack of transfers in January. We've signed 1 player from Parma for £2 million. There was also Enzo Maresca was reportedly frustrated with our lack of activity in January last year as well. So I don't think these experienced managers are going to come and work at Leicester. I mean, after we won the FA Cup, we actually lost to Forest, who were in the Championship the year after. We had Brendan Rodgers. We were paying him £10 million a year. He came out and said, this team need a refresh, and we either didn't have the money or we just didn't back him. And the recruitment ever since has been terrible. I just don't think these top quality managers want to come and work at Leicester. And we had to take a gamble on Ruud, big name. It's bizarrely quite a powerful dressing room at Leicester, considering the league position that we're in. And at least his playing career should command a bit of respect.
A few years ago, you spoilt recruitment, didn't you? Because I can't
we
remember
hit
the
the
old
jackpot.
fella was. He got it brilliant, didn't he?
Yeah, Mahrez and Kante.
Mahrez and Kante.
Walsh was doing it.
Even
Walsh,
after
that's
that,
it. Steve Walsh.
Maguire, Maddison, Fofana, Tielemans, Schmeichel. Let him go for £1 million. You said about Sanchez being the worst keeper in the league. Danny Ward played against Wolves and threw 3 in. Do you know what I mean? And he's still at the club. We got relegated with him in goal and this back 4. 2 years later, we've still got the same. So it's a bit of a mess.
Good way to finish then.
On that happy note.
Exactly. And well, thanks for joining us on another episode of the Fan Debate, brought to you by Sky Bet.